They say when a baby is born, so is a mother. But while you are there to help your baby grow into the person he or she is meant to be, who is there to help you? Many women feel lost and alone when they become mothers, wondering, who am I now? Sometimes it feels like the transformation from woman to mother is as radical as a caterpillar's transformation into a butterfly. Did you know that inside the chrysalis, the caterpillar literally turns into goop before it rearranges itself into a butterfly? This podcast is about the goop, what soul transformation looks like as you transition from being a woman to a mom. Your baby's growth matters, but yours does too. You're not alone. I'm your host, Brittany Ming. Welcome to the Motherhood Metamorphosis.
Welcome everyone to this episode of the Motherhood Metamorphosis. Today we're talking to Jessica Brudjar. She is a Jesus-loving single mom to an 11-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old tabby cat. She has spent the last 17 years on active duty in the Air Force, and she has a deep passion for people. When she isn't working or parenting, she loves to write, sing, work on an odd projects around the house, and or nap. Which I love that you said nap, because, that's like a rare luxury in life and motherhood. But you're like, this is my passion. This is what I like.
Thank you.
Yes.
I even have a t-shirt that says I love Jesus, coffee, and naps.
Yes. Like it's all the things I love. So this is airing on July 4th. And I wanted to talk to you today. It was actually my husband's idea to talk to you because we were talking about July 4th being on a Monday. And that's the day that I air podcast. And I was like, I really want to have something special on that day because it's a holiday. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool to talk to like a military person, a military, active duty military mom? And he's like, well, you should talk to Jessica. And we were just talking before the show started about whether or not we had met in person. But I know that my husband knows you very well because you guys interacted a lot in tech school when we were in Texas. Mm-hmm. And so he really admires you. You're like one of his heroes. And he loves your journey. He loves your leadership. Uh-huh. And we've become Facebook friends and interacted that way. So I'm really excited to talk to you today and hear your story and how you have overcome a lot of struggles and just pursued your motherhood with such love and passion for your daughter, even though it hasn't looked exactly like you would have planned. Absolutely. So I was wondering if you could just tell your motherhood story, like tell your military story and what that looks like all wrapped up into a package.
Absolutely. Well, first, thank you so much for having me on the show, Brittany. I love your podcast. I love you and Aaron, and follow you guys. I also think the world of both of you, and I'm truly honored to get to be part of this. My motherhood story is one that is not. It's similar to a lot of folks where you decide it's the right time to have a baby. And then for a couple of years, you try and finally get pregnant. I was married at the time, but unfortunately, we'd been married for about 8 years when the whole marriage fell apart. He drove drunk and killed a woman. Turned out there was a lot of infidelity, and there had been a lot of abuse that I'd not talked to anybody about. And so all of a sudden, almost overnight, not only has my marriage fallen apart, I'm in a very demanding military assignment, but now I've got to figure out how to be a single parent to this super precocious, almost 3-year-old who definitely had her dad wrapped around her little finger. But because I had been geographically separated, kind of wanted nothing to do with me and was convinced she didn't need moms. There'd been a string of women that she'd been exposed to, but her dad had been her constant. And so he's suddenly out of the picture and I am it, and she's not sure about me. And of course, I don't know what had previously been said about me to her or what kind of context had existed for her previously. So I am in Las Vegas and trying to figure all of this out. And I think a lot of times when I tell the story, I've got this nice 15-minute, like, here's my crazy, like, trauma and coming back from it video out there. It sounds like, oh, this thing happened and then Jesus worked and poof, everything's better. And the reality is that was not the case. It was, you talk about being in the goop. It was the goop for a good chunk of time. Couldn't stay in bed because I had to work and I had this little girl who needed attention and food and clothing. You know, they're needy, those little kids. But trying to figure out, who do I interact with? Do I have a support system out here? I was, like I said, in a very demanding position in the military, where oftentimes you almost are expected to sleep in your office. And suddenly that was absolutely not going to be the case. And I think a lot of times as women in the military, we are expected to just figure it out, just make it happen. And yet the military side of things, especially in demanding environments, says, we need you to pour your whole heart into everything here. And I became really convinced that this was not going to be about time management. It was going to be about boundary management, trying to identify the things that were super important. You know, obviously I needed to pick up Abby because they'll ransom your kid off, basically, if you're late picking kids up from daycare. But if she had a recital or something going on, saying this is important and I'm going to fence it off and I'm going to fiercely protect that. There were times where I might have to get somebody else to pick her up from school or from daycare, but school as she got older. But there were things where I said, this is a place I won't compromise. Deployments obviously were a bit different because at that point, there's not much I can see. Although if I said, is there any way I can step out of my workspace for a little bit to watch this video of my child at a gymnastics meet, which actually was a thing that I did, because I don't think any of us are ever going to adequately manage our time as moms. We are presented with this perfect picture of what a mom is supposed to be. And I don't know anybody who is her outside of Facebook highlight reels and Instagram pictures. And so I found myself struggling to try to do all the things that everyone said I needed to be doing and have this military career, and make sure that my daughter wasn't maybe the stereotypical child raised by a single mom. And so the boundary maintenance, boundary management piece really became huge. And I can tell you, the day that I knew that I'd finally got my feet kind of under me, the first year or so, Abby would bring home invitations to birthday parties and stuff, and I threw them all away. Thankfully, she was little and had no clue. But I could not stomach the idea of being at these parties and being by myself and having to explain who I was and, oh, who's her dad? Well, he's not really in the picture. It just felt shameful. It felt exhausting. And I just couldn't do it. And the day that I RSVP'd for a party for her and went to the party, and I didn't have an absolutely amazing time, but I didn't leave going, that was a terrible mistake. I knew that, okay, I've kind of come out of this. We're finding our feet. And since then, I mean, she is my mini me. And she is super sassy. And of course, being 11, she's at that age where there are moments where it's like, it's a good thing I love you because otherwise you might not stay alive. Because kids, but we've become this little team. We used to have a tradition in San Angelo called Stango Saturdays, where every Saturday we would go and have coffee or floats or whatever. And at different duty locations, we have tried to keep that going. Sometimes here it'll be, you know, we're going to go do a special, like we'll go to Natural Bridge Caverns or something. Sometimes it's just a walk around the loop. She talks to me more if we're out for a walk. And so if I'm sensing that there's something going on, hey, let's go for a walk around this half-mile loop. It's been so different than anything I ever expected, ever anticipated. Nowhere in my wildest dreams did I ever think, oh, I'm going to be a single mom. Everything about my previous life was all about making the right decisions so things like that didn't happen. And yet when you're handed that, you know, deck of cards, you play what you're dealt, I guess. Yeah. So it's been a journey.
Yeah. So when you were talking about the birthday party and how that was when you knew that you're like, okay, I can handle this. Like, this is something that my world has broadened a little bit so I can absorb this party. And you said that when everything first fell apart, that she didn't want anything to do with you. Can you talk about coming back together, like how you guys connected after that time? Because you were away. Were you deployed or was that during your like 6 months
that was
training?
During my time at weapons school.
Okay.
So my ex-husband had taken Abby at the time to Albuquerque, New Mexico, which would have been closer than Georgia, where we were previously stationed, while I was at Nellis, all the duty stations there.
Yeah.
And then my weapons school got delayed by 6 months. And so, or I didn't go then. So pretty long separation. And she'd actually said, I don't need a mommy, I have a daddy, which was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And couldn't figure out where this was coming from. So when all of this happened, she would go through tantrums and destroy her room and things like that. And just wanted nothing to do with anything I said, anything I did. And it definitely added to my despair, really. Like, this little girl is my mini me and wants nothing to do with anything. It was a perseverance thing. We would go do things like for her birthday, which is in August. I would leave work early and I would get like a princess crown and things like that, which they love when they're that age, right? And we would go watch a movie together. It became about the little dates and the little ways that, I would talk with her, where I really wanted to encourage the things that she was doing. Oh, you want to dance? Cool. We'll put you in a dance class. I would love to see this. Talk to me about your art. It was a lot of work on my part. And I think even today it still is, because there are things that she's into where a part of me is like, I really don't want to hear about anime right now. And the show that you're super into, that you're actually crying because of some episode. And yet I found that if she's going to talk, I need to have my ears wide open and listen because she's sharing something. And so it definitely was a lot about digging in and keeping my mouth shut when I just wanted to be like, I'm super busy and I'm trying to make food that I know you're not going to eat, but you want to talk to me. So I'm going to stop what I'm doing and hear what you have to say.
Yeah. I like how you talked about perseverance, because I think sometimes when you lack a connection with a child, and I just want to like bring that to the forefront, like there is not always a connection with your child that you have birthed from your body. And I'm specifically thinking, like, before we came on this episode, like I've had a rough parenting moment or morning, and I'm going to have to do some triage cleanup work after we get done talking today. But there's some kids that I have birthed from my body that I have struggled to find an emotional connection with from the very beginning. And it just takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of like going back and being like, my heart wants to seek your heart, even though like we both have put up walls, and it's so hard to be like, I want to find you, and it's hard, but it's my job as the parent to keep seeking you, because that's my role as the parent. Because
Yes.
I think sometimes I get in this place where be like, just want to throw up my hands and give up and be like, fine, if she wants to have a relationship, if he wants to have a relationship with me, he can come find me. It's hard to do that persevering work. And I love that you share that story, because it's not a story that people tell. They like to talk about, oh, the warm fuzzies, we love each other so much. And you're like,
Yeah.
parenting is so hard. And sometimes that relationship is just really hard won and fragile.
And at times almost toxic,
Yes.
as we are trying desperately to find the connection.
Yeah.
I think about in a lot of marital relationships, we choose that other person. And yet this kid that we birthed out of our bodies, who we are struggling to connect with, there are times where Abby and I have just screamed and screamed, days where we all just need to retreat to our separate rooms and maybe not talk for 24 hours. But I have gone back and I've said, I choose you, and I don't know what it's going to take to get to you, but I am here and I love you more than anything. And I choose to continue to try to do this when everything in me does want to throw my hands up in the air and say, fine, wear what you want, do what you want, since you seem to know so much more than I do, even though I've been on this earth a bit longer. So a lot of it is that choice. And there are days where it's like, I don't feel like making that choice. I'm tired. And I think those days are okay too. And we don't talk about that. We do talk about perseverance at times, right? But there are also days where it's like, I am spent. And the best thing for me, and probably for my child, is for me to go, I choose to just step back right now.
Yeah, I think that's also maybe resonates with your boundary setting that you talked about earlier, and how you're saying, I'm a human too, and I need a boundary so I can recoup my mental faculties or my emotional health. And I think that's really good. I mean, I'm thinking about that right now in just my own parenting journey, is saying like, what kind of boundaries do I need to set, like as a human being, and as my for my children's health and my health, and like our
Mhm.
relationship in this house together in the summer. Because summer
Absolutely.
is tough.
Are you going through the unexpected right now, this very moment? I've been there too. In my book, Unexpected: Learning to Love Your Unpredictable Story, I delve into many of the unexpected circumstances of my life. An unexpected twin pregnancy, autism ADHD diagnosis for my sons, a devastating miscarriage, the loss of my career, dealing with depression and anxiety, being a military wife, and so much more. My book is faith-based, so it may not speak to you in your personal journey. However, I strive to be inclusive and encouraging, and not preachy, and women who don't have a personal faith tradition have told me that it has encouraged them. My hope and prayer is that as you are going through this unexpected season, my story will encourage you and provide comfort and support as you bravely walk this unfamiliar path. You can find Unexpected: Learning to Love Your Unpredictable Story on Amazon in print, Kindle, and audiobook format, because if you're a busy mom like me, audiobooks may be the only way you're reading these days.
Summer is so tough. A routine that Abby and I often will do is, if I've had a hard day at work, I will say, hey, I've had a hard day. You have to give me 10 minutes before you talk to me, before you bring up anything from TV, etc. I need 10 minutes to decompress. And it's kind of an understood thing that mom needs to recharge her batteries a little bit. And there are times now where Abby will look at me and she's like, I'm giving you 30 minutes to go take a nap. Cool, thank you. I'll be back in 30 minutes.
I love
But
that
people
though.
learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that that resonates with Aaron, my husband's experience in the military too, because he has talked a lot about needing to decompress from work. I think the military lifestyle, and I've talked about this with him and with other military spouses, just that the military will take and take and take and take. And if you don't say, I have to set a boundary or no, then they will just steal everything from you. And maybe that's me being jaded, but like that's like the experience of military life. And saying that you need to decompress is you taking care of yourself while you are in this lifestyle, because this lifestyle is so hard, especially for active duty parents.
Mhm.
So I wondered if you could talk about, because I know people are curious and they don't often understand what military life is like, especially for parents. Like what we see online is the homecoming video, you know? And people love those and they love to cry at them and they say, oh, how beautiful, or they see them at the sporting events or like the classroom settings. And like before we joined the military, like I loved them too. You'd be like, oh my gosh, that's
Sure.
so awesome. It's wonderful. And it is wonderful. However, like there's a whole part that comes before that, and there's a whole part after that that is invisible to people who are not in the military. So I wonder if you could talk about parenting through a deployment and the people who have helped support you in your motherhood journey.
Absolutely. Thinking back to 2017, I deployed to an undisclosed location in the Middle East. And when it came down, I knew, okay, it's my time to go. At no point was I going to say, I'm a single parent. This isn't fair. The reality is that I wear a uniform right along with everyone else. And so I said to my family, hey, I'm deploying. I need to kind of figure this out. And my aunt, who lives in Scottsdale, Arizona, actually said, oh, we've already talked about this. I am going to move to San Angelo. And she hit pause on her entire life, moved into my home for a total of 9 months. She moved in early so that she could kind of get the lay of the land in terms of what Abby's routine looked like. I made sure she met everybody who she could possibly need to use as a resource in San Angelo. And then she made sure that Abby's routine was 100% the same. And she had the summer of her life that summer. Not that she remembers it now, which is kind of sad. But at that time, it was really important because the lead up to the deployment, I think there was so much unspoken stress and sadness and unknown. And a couple days before it was time for me to actually depart the country, my aunt took Abby away for a weekend. And so that way I could finish packing and everything. And I remember Abby standing at the door and going, "Mommy, mommy," like it was her moment where she knew this was it for the next 6 months. And I just wanted to take off the uniform then and say, no, I cannot leave my baby. There's no way. Obviously, that's not an option that we have. And so during the deployment, thank God for technology, I was able to video chat her almost every day. The funny thing was, though, Abby would see that I was safe and good, like mom's fine, and she'd walk off. I would want to have these huge in-depth conversations. Tell me about school today. How are you feeling? What's going on? Hi, mom. Okay, I'm going to go watch TV now.
Yeah.
Girl.
Yeah.
And that was part devastating for me, but part she's safe and she knows I'm safe. So we're good. And then I would talk to my aunt about like the important things that we needed to talk about.
Yeah.
So when I got back, thankfully my aunt stuck around a little bit longer. For another month or so, because I actually had issues transitioning back in.
Yeah.
Parenting, when you're not parenting for 6 months and you're completely focused on war, it is such a different mindset, and recaging your brain doesn't just happen overnight. And that took me a while.
Yeah.
I remember walking into my house and just bawling because everything felt so foreign. And this little girl in 6 months, I swear, had grown so much and had so much more personality. And I felt so bad that even though I'd video chatted and I'd watched gymnastics meets and whatnot, I felt like I'd missed it. And so there was this huge ball of emotions, and figuring out what are the things that I used to do for Abby that she can now do on her own. And I don't want to hinder that. And I don't want to assume that we just pick up where we left off 6 months ago. Because the reality was a lot of life had happened in those 6 months while I was off fighting a war. And that was really, really hard. And I was so grateful for my aunt's foresight in deciding to stick around a little longer, because I was like, oh, we'll be great. I mean, yeah, it's going to be fine. I was not fine for a bit. And so that was important. And Abby didn't necessarily understand what I'd been off doing.
Yeah.
She just knew that mommy was far away and now mommy was back. But when I had issues at first, we went to a school festival and the crowd just, I couldn't handle the crowd. And so I went off to the side somewhere and my aunt took Abby around. And I was so grateful in that moment that I had that support, because it impacted my ability to parent effectively for a little bit.
Yeah.
And you're right, we don't talk about that stuff at all.
What do you think helped you adjust? Do you think it was just getting back into routine, or do you think it was specific things you did, or just like honoring like what you needed in the moment, like stepping away from the crowd? What do you think helped you adjust in that month that she was there, and even after she left?
Yeah, I think part of it was definitely honoring the things that I needed in that moment and not going, I should be fine. I'm just going to push through, because the I should be's simply force us to put on a mask that's not us, and it's not authentic. And so honoring whatever I needed in that minute or hour or whatever was really important. Going back to some of the things that we used to do, like our first trip to Stango's was so sweet. And so going back into those routines was really, I think, important. Abby now understands why, if we go to a restaurant, I prefer to sit so that I can see the door, which I think is actually common for a lot of military folks.
It's for my
and
husband too. Yep.
Yeah. And she doesn't necessarily understand why, but she understands that that is kind of an artifact, if you will, of a lot of that journey. And her going, okay, mom, you're going to sit over here, because she's looked at where the doors are. So it was definitely a combo of the things that we'd established as a routine for connecting, taking time for me when I needed time for me, taking time to journal and talk through things with other folks. I have a cousin who unfortunately passed away earlier this year from COVID. But he had been through a deployment a year in Iraq. I got home in October, talked to him in November, and it was so good to talk to somebody who understood exactly what I was feeling and really validated all of the emotions and the sensations, the roller coaster that I came home with that I wasn't expecting. And so that was really key. Talking about it. I know that we always talk about, hey, you'll feel better if you talk it out, but who do you talk it out with? And so I think having somebody to talk with who understood exactly where I was coming from was really key.
Do you think that when you came home during reintegration that she was really attached to your aunt, or did she really want to be with you again, like during that
She
time?
wanted to be with me. And it's funny because anytime I go TDY, my aunt comes in to take care of Abby. She's coming in tomorrow because I have a TDY to Nellis this
Yeah.
next week. And so there's a special place in Abby's heart for Bobby, my aunt. In fact, when she was little, they would say, "Oh, is this your grandmother?" She's like, "No, that's my Bobby." And so she was still, she respects Bobby. We joke that I co-parent with my aunt because we're on the same page parenting wise. But Abby definitely wanted her mom time,
Yeah.
which was really sweet
Yeah.
and such a long way from where we started, where she wanted nothing to do with me.
Yeah, that's really tender. I love that for you. And I'm sure that it was like sweet, but maybe that also did it contribute to you feeling overwhelmed when you first
At
reintegrated?
times,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes. Because it was like I didn't want to peel her off of me, but at the same time, it was like, I can't breathe.
Yeah.
I need some space. But I never in a million years would have said that to her. And
Yeah.
so that's one of the things you maybe are less authentic about, because I never want to tell my kiddo, don't touch me.
Yeah.
There will come a time and a place where she wants nothing to do with cuddling with mom and holding mom's hand. Oh my goodness. And so that probably contributed a little bit, but it was a blessing and a curse.
Yeah. I think it's one of those like both ands of motherhood where you're like, I love you so much and I'm going to give myself to you. And in other spaces, I need to honor like what I need. And I think finding
Mhm.
that way to honor both of them is so hard. I almost said balance, but like there's no balance in that. I think it's just like figuring out the moment
Yeah.
and like learning to like love your child and love yourself at the same time. And I think
Yes.
that's one of the hardest things about motherhood
100%.
because
100%.
in your chosen career, the military takes and takes and takes, and children also take and take and take.
Yes.
And so if sometimes I think you can feel like there's nothing left of me because everything is taking and everything is demanding like more of you, more of so
Mhm.
I don't know, like I think that it's really important to get those insights that the reintegration is a transition and it takes a while, and
Yes.
that's something that people don't see. Like they only see the homecoming video and they think, oh, everything's back to normal, and it's not. Like we've had our
No.
own integration. We've my husband and I have had a lot of separations even in the 5 years that we've been in. Our deployment reintegration was actually the best. I feel like it was really
Wow.
difficult, yeah, but we had a he did a 2 month, well, it was technically a deployment, but 2 month TDY to Red Flag, which is in Vegas. And
Hmm.
that reintegration was rough. I felt like it took us 2 months to get our feet back underneath us.
Wow.
I felt like we weren't us. And it just took us a while to like mesh our lives back together. And we eventually got there. But that just freaked me out because I'm like, this is not,
Oh
this
my
is not
goodness.
cool. Like something, we're off. But I
Yes.
know that like if we give it the time and the process and we talk through like those really tough things, then we can communicate like what we're feeling. But I think that's hard too because you think, can I actually bring all my emotions to the table? Is
Exactly.
yeah, can I trust myself and trust this other person to like honor all of my complicated feelings about what it means to be in this lifestyle? Because it is really hard. And I think that it's tough if you're not in it and it's hard to understand. So I think that's a reason that I wanted to share your story and really just like honor military people in general, whether it's a spouse or an active duty. mom or an active duty member, just to say like, hey, like I want to honor the difficulties that you go through. And I know a lot of people say like, thank you for your service, but I want to say like, I just see you, I see that it's hard, and I see the struggle, and I really love your story because I see so much love between you and Abby, and I see the ways that you've made your life healthy and whole and beautiful for her despite like the struggles that you've gone through.
Thank you, Brittany.
Yeah.
And I do want to say, for you as a spouse, I see you. And I know that the deployment, while your reintegration maybe wasn't as bad, at the end of the deployment, I know that the deployment itself was torturous.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And I see that, and I see you, and I can't stand it when people are like, well, you knew what you signed up for. No, nobody knows what they sign up for. Whether it's a mil spouse or active duty, there are some things where it's like, my recruiter did not tell me about this.
They don't get paid to tell you the hard parts.
Exactly. It's all like roses and unicorns and rainbows. But I see you, and I see what you have walked through, and you have held your family. You are the glue that holds your family together. As the mom in that goop,
Yeah.
right? And you've done a phenomenal job with it, in spite of everything.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I tell my husband, I'm like, you're the glitter and I'm the glue. Nobody really likes the glue, but you need it to hold it together. Everybody wants the glitter.
There you go.
Yeah.
But more often than not, am I looking for glitter? Or am I looking for glue? I'm looking for glue.
Yeah, exactly. So I know that there are military spouses and there are military moms, active duty, that are listening today. And I just wondered if you had just some like tender words for their situation as you've looked back on your 11 years of being a single mom. Actually, not 11 years, but 11 years of being a mother, and walking a difficult path as a single mom. I wonder if you had some words of tenderness or advice for them.
Sure. So first, much like what we've just said, I see you. You are seen. I know it can feel that way in a squadron, it can feel like you're not seen. One of my biggest struggles as a single parent is actually that there's oftentimes not a place in a squadron for me, because the things I deal with as a parent would fit more in with the spouses club, but I'm not a spouse. And so I'm kind of in a weird fringe place, but I want you to know that you are seen. I want you to know that you don't have to be anybody other than who you are. You will see spouses, or you will see other active duty members who seem like they've got it all together and are somehow making all of the pieces fit, and it just seems so perfect. And you lay awake at night going, what am I doing wrong? I am missing something. I am flawed. And the reality is, you are you, for the reason that you're you. And you have the babies that you have because God knew that you were the one to raise those babies. I had a situation where I was told I could either be a good weapons officer or I could be a good mom, but I couldn't be both.
Oh.
And I cried and cried and cried. And one of the people going through weapons school with me looked at me and he said, you are not going to be that person. You are going to be you. And if that means allowing others to have space to go be with their family, if that means you leave at 5 so other people will leave at 5, if you have that ability, then great. But trying to be people that we're not doesn't help us. So if you are that military mom out there or that mil spouse out there, and you feel like all of the plates are spinning but something is going to fall, I promise that all of us are walking on some shards, and it's okay.
Yeah.
It is okay. And you are loved and you are seen. And if you're not seen, call me, please.
We'll add your number to the podcast notes.
I have people reach out to me on Facebook all the time who say, hey, I saw your video.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm the only person who has been through what I've been through.
Yeah.
But I want people to know that they're not alone in any of it.
That's great. And I definitely want to share a link to your video in the show notes. We won't share your phone number, but we will share the video.
Okay.
All right, so to end up our time, I have these 10 rapid fire questions that are just for fun. So I'm
Okay.
super excited to hear your answers. So number one, which Disney princess would you want to take out to coffee with Abby, of course, and you?
Anna.
I love Anna. She's so spunky. She's
Yes.
great. I love her. She'd be really
Yes.
fun at coffee. What's one thing you must have on your nightstand?
Chapstick.
Me too. That's my answer if somebody asked me, and like nobody says chapstick, but I'm like, if your lips are chapped or dry, you can't sleep.
No, you cannot.
Yes, you gotta have chapstick.
Yes.
What's your go-to treat after Abby goes to bed? Or maybe she's staying up later, but when she was little, what would you have when she went to bed?
Chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream.
Nice. That's the best. I love that. What's an ordinary moment that brings you great joy?
Picking Abby up from school. It is my favorite moment of the entire day.
Oh, I love that. The last show you binged and loved.
The Mandalorian.
Oh yeah?
Yes.
That's
I
fun.
finally just watched it, like finished it yesterday.
Oh, fun. I love that. My boys just started the new Obi-Wan Kenobi show.
We've been watching that too.
Yeah.
Yes.
I haven't watched it with them, but I am a old school Star Wars fan, but I haven't gotten into all the new fandom shows that are recent. So that's really fun. If you run out of this besides milk, you have to go to the store.
If I run out of coffee.
Yeah, you got to have coffee. If you're at the end of the bucket, you're like, nope, you got to go and get some
It's not going to work. We're going to the store right now.
That's right. Who makes you laugh?
Besides Abby? I would say Abby, actually. That kid has me rolling most of the time.
Yeah, that's great. When you were 5 years old, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Paleontologist.
Nice. Gotta go see those dinosaurs.
Yes.
Yeah. What are you looking forward to?
I'm 40 right now, and I'm looking forward to whatever the 40s hold for me. It's no longer a decade that I'm afraid of. I think I spent a lot of time afraid of it, and now I'm like 40 and fabulous. Let's see what we've got.
I love that. Finish this sentence, last one. Motherhood is?
An adventure.
For sure. And you've had a lot of adventures.
Yes.
Well, Jessica, thank you so much for coming on today. I love the insight you gave. I think it's going to speak to a lot of people, not just people who are in the military, but people who are wondering, am I doing motherhood right? If my relationship is hard, if the connection isn't there, if I'm a working mom and my career means a whole lot to me, and how do I do that and be a mom who has a good connection with my kids or my child? So I really appreciate this conversation. I'm really thankful that you came on.
Thank you so much, Brittany. It has been a huge pleasure to be on today. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Motherhood Metamorphosis. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to this channel so you never miss an episode. Next, tell your friends. Podcasts are a slow growth type of social media, so promo works best when it's from person to person. If you know another mom who's in the goop right now, send her a text of encouragement and the link to the episode that is speaking to your heart right now. If you have a story about your own matrescence, the physical, emotional, hormonal, and social transition that occurs when someone becomes a mother, please leave a comment below. I want this channel to be a place where women can build community about the challenges and joys of their own motherhood metamorphosis. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope it encouraged you and gave you some good food for thought. If you ever have any questions, comments, or you'd like to reach out to me personally, you can email me at brittanyaming@gmail.com.
That was an iPad request.
Oh. Yeah, I told Abby, I was like, do not come up into my room for the next hour.
I did. I told him that, but apparently this trumped the iPad trumped the sign on the door that says recording. Oops. I don't want to leave the meeting. Oh, nope. Okay. I'm trying to, oh, here we go. Stop video. All right. We're going to have, oh, I don't want to do that either. I don't know what I'm doing with this. I'll just have to edit all this out. Okay. Well, that was the end. So that was really good.